So today we will be painting a coneflower, but the lesson is focused on the positive effects of negative space. So before we get started, I wanted to show you the difference in what negative space is. Negative space on a canvas is the unused part of a canvas that's around your main part of your composition. So in this case, it's the background of our flower that we're going to turn this watercolor gray. And in this case, our space, our negative space, is actually our window, which is giving this painting light. So you can use negative space to your advantage. It doesn't always have to be grayed out. It doesn't have to be black. You can turn it into the light of your painting. So let's get started. We are using a watercolor board. And as you can see, I pre-sketched my coneflower, as you do with all watercolors. We're going to use black, gray, white, magenta, crimson, and sienna. And we're going to be using probably 3 brushes. We have 2 round brushes of different size and a flat brush that's kind of a medium size. I have a couple of other brushes standing by that I always do, like my small angled brush that we will use if we have to. So you're going to get this brush kind of wet. What we're going to do is we're going to take gray and white, and the first thing we're going to do is gray out our negative space, because the focal point of this composition is our coneflower. So we're going to do the darker color around the outside, and we're going to just kind of have fun with it. Leave your brush strokes showing. Experiment with the way you're doing your brush. Don't try to do everything exactly the same. You don't have to get all my brush strokes. Kind of give it your own twist. And we're going to do it kind of fast. And it's okay if the colors run. None of that really matters, because that's what makes this painting interesting. What you don't want to do is leave a lot of white canvas showing. You do want to gray that out. That way your flower petals and your stem and everything and the cone on the flower is going to stand out against that gray. If you were to leave the background white, then when somebody looks at this, they're going to see a lot of white canvas, and it's not going to work for you. So if you're going to have a flower like this, you really need to do something to that negative space. The next thing we're going to do is the cone. All right, and we're going to use a sienna with a touch of black for that. We're just going to do it like this. Kind of outline it. And then kind of dab it on there. Don't just paint in one direction. Feel free to try out different strokes with your brush. Okay, we're going to leave our cone alone. We're going to rinse that brush out really well. And we are going to work on the main part, which is the petals. So for that, we are going to use crimson and magenta. And we're going to outline these petals. The trick to getting all your petals to stand out from each other is we alternate where we place our highlights, where we place the dark parts of our color, where we saturate. So the first thing we're doing is we're just going to outline all these petals super fast. Don't overthink it. You're going to let this watercolor board do its job. You're going to fill in this color right here. You can see I'm starting to get all of these filled in, and then we'll go back and I'll show you how to add some highlights, especially if you got your petals too close together or something, because if you don't learn to separate them, all your flowers are going to look like a blob. Let's take a look at the sample painting real quick. So you'll notice this is a little darker, but that's okay. I didn't add as much crimson. But if you'll notice where these flower petals are darkened around the edges and where we placed our light spots, that's what's going to separate your petals. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to separate these petals. You kind of want your strokes to go with the direction of your flower. If you do like that, it's going to make the petal look unnatural. So one thing I really like about this one is it left some bleed right here, so we're actually going to leave that alone. We're not going to mess with that. You can see I'm kind of making each petal a little different where I place the dark color. We're going to rinse that out, and we're going to get some pure white. I'm going to add in some white highlights here. And I think originally I added in a little blue-gray, so if you have a blue-gray handy or if you have a black handy, don't be afraid to mix a little bit of that in there to give your petal some shadow. And every little thing you do is what's going to bring that flower to life. Okay, so we're almost to a point where I like it. And I really like bleed. If you don't, feel free to take your gray and kind of take that out. Or on a watercolor board, you can actually take a little water and you just apply it to the board. And you can lift some of that paint off of there if you don't like it. Just like that. You just apply some clean water. It'll lift it right off of that watercolor board. That's one of the advantages of this kind of canvas. The last thing we're going to do is we are going to use our green, which I forgot about. Yes, you do need green. We're going to give our petal a stem here, or our flower a stem. See, I added a little white in there. And I almost like it. I think we need to touch up one of our petals where I don't like the bleed. So we're gonna put some water here. We're gonna clean this up. And just like that, you have painted a very simple abstract coneflower.